everyone, thank you for joining us for the first night of 2020 Vision. My name is Amanda Lee and I am one of the co-founders of the Astoria Music Project. The Astoria Music Project has presented musical performances in bars, libraries, and theaters across Queens, and now for the first time we have collaborated with local visual artists to create videos that showcase art by women, accompanied by music composed by women. Our program tonight features 2 music video premieres, and we are very excited to have the artists join us after for a short conversation, led by Norma Homburg, director of the Plaxel Gallery in Long Island City. We'd also like to acknowledge that this project was made possible with funds from the New York State Council on the Arts. Our first video tonight features music composed by Florence Price. Born in 1887, Florence Price was an extremely accomplished African-American composer. Yet only within the last few years have her compositions really received the notoriety that they deserve. I hope you will enjoy her beautiful piece, Adoration, with myself on horn, David Taubman on piano, and gorgeous art created by the talented Kimberly Abbott. Please enjoy.
Thank you, Amanda, David, and Kimberly, for that beautiful work. I simply adored it. And thank you to everyone watching at home tonight. We're so excited to have you join us for this very special presentation. In these troubling times, we felt it very important to keep this event free and open to the public, which is why you'll notice we have not charged a ticket price for admission to this presentation. However, if you would like to support the Astoria Music Project, you can do so by making a tax-deductible donation through our fiscal sponsor, the New York Foundation for the Arts. Donations can be made quickly and easily online by visiting www.astoriamusicproject.com/donate. It's now my pleasure to introduce the second piece of the evening, Love, Let the Wind Cry, How I Adore Thee, by Undine Smith-Moore. Known as the Dean of Black women composers, Moore was a Virginia native who spent over 40 years teaching in her home state. She was originally trained in classical piano, but found her passion lie in composition and used many influences from African folk songs and spirituals in her music. She was also dedicated to educating the public about the contributions of Black individuals to the world of classical music, both in the US and beyond. And in 1981, she was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for her oratorio based on the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This particular piece has the added bonus of being set to a translation of a text by the ancient Greek poet Sappho, who is another huge figure in women's history. We asked Mafe Izaguirre to join us for this collaboration, as we wanted to see one of her sensitive machines react in real time to the sweeping vocal line and thick piano texture of this amazing piece of music. Please enjoy this performance of Love, Let the Wind Cry, How I Adore Thee by myself and pianist David Taubman in dialogue with Mafe's machine.
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone joining us this evening for a panel discussion with the Astoria Music Project, including Stefanie Izzo, Amanda Lee, and David Taubman, and artists Kimberly Abbott and Mafe Izaguirre. I'm Norma Homburg from Long Island City Artists, and I'll be moderating this evening. Bringing the arts across the community via online has probably been very challenging, to say the least. By collaborating with visual artists, Astoria Music Project has managed to bring the online experience to a more sensual level. The emotions transcending from the visual art and music coming together to create these paired compositions really allows the online viewers to experience a heightened activation of their senses. I'd like to start with some questions for the musicians this evening. If you could tell us briefly why you chose solely female composers for this project, and touch on specifically Florence Price and Undine Smith-Moore, which are both very exceptional, empowering women.
Sure. I guess I'll start. I just want to thank you, Norma, for moderating this for us tonight. We're so thankful to have you with us. Yeah, so this project is the culmination of our season of 4 concerts that we had originally envisioned as our Music She Wrote season, which is entirely women composers. It's always been a passion project of mine to include music of women. I was assigned a Clara Schumann song when I was an undergraduate class, and I sort of never looked back. And so, unfortunately, as is true in many other genres, the classical music world has not always been friendly to the performing music by women. And so some data came out about a year and a half or so ago from an organization called Donne UK, in which they did a survey of 2018-19 season guides for orchestras and came up with only 2.3% of those concerts included music by women. And considering we make up half the population, it's very disappointing. And so we decided to do our entire season this year. We're now a year and a half going on with only music written by women. We felt very strongly that we wanted to showcase the music of a variety of different women. Last year, our season was American music, and we did have a concert of entirely American women. But this year, we were able to sort of expand and go into a few different genres, a few different time periods, as well as create some sort of new content this way with our arts, with our artist collaborations. And so we've had music by women on every single one of our concerts to date, but we thought it was really worthwhile and sends a really strong message that we are dedicated to showcasing the work of women.
So Astoria Music Project puts on a variety of performances every year, as you were saying. Where did this project fit in with the rest of the season? And please tell us a little more about the timeline process for recording and selecting the artists.
Amanda, David.
Well, it's so funny because this season now has been so extended. Usually we'd be in our next season already, but because of COVID, it's, we're all kind of rolling with punches. But the season overall, we had several different themes. So we wanted to take a look at music of Clara Schumann and her contemporaries. And so we started, it was her 200th birthday earlier, well, I guess technically now last year, right? Yeah. So earlier this season, but about a year ago.
Approximately 25 years ago.
Right. That's what it feels like. And so we performed music of hers and her contemporaries. We looked at and performed music of only female composers of color. And so this one that we're doing now is great because we got to not only work with a composer who's alive currently, but also look at the works of female composers of the past and have an opportunity to work with, other artists, so who are clearly alive right now. So it was great to kind of branch out and work with non-musicians for a bit. I think it really rounds off the season beautifully.
Amanda, the Florence Price piece, Adoration, was originally composed for an organ and then arranged for violin and piano. What is unusual or challenging about reimagining it for the horn?
There's nothing particularly challenging just because it's such a lyrical, beautiful piece. It's just really a simple melody that I think really kind of was inspired by Florence Price's involvement in her church. So it's very much like a hymn with kind of like also like African American spiritual themes within it. So it's just very lyrical, and I think it fits the horn because the horn is also in a register very similar to the voice. So there's, it's kind of a naturally good fit, I think, for the horn. And I just also wanted to add the two pieces from tonight are both written by African American composers, which, Stefanie talked about representation of women in music. I mean, yeah, for African American women, it's even less. So, so I think it's great that the 50% of this program are women of color.
Yeah, and unfortunately, for these two women in particular, now their music is becoming more well known. Specifically, Florence Price. I mean, she's sort of like having a renaissance, I would say, in the last few years, as her works are being given the attention they deserve. But Undine Smith, more in particular, when she was alive, she sort of struggled with the idea that she could be successful as a composer. I mean, she was a huge influence as an educator in her home state of Virginia, and worked really hard to encourage people to learn about the contributions of Black people to classical music, both in the US and abroad. But she didn't see herself as someone who was a successful composer, and only like 26 of her over 100 compositions were actually published in her lifetime. And even now, a lot of them are really hard to find. And I mean, she was nominated for a Nobel Prize for one of her pieces, but it's still really hard to find printed music by her. And so it's, I think this is one of the challenges that we find as musicians sometimes, is even just finding repertoire that's available, or that's available in print for us to actually get our hands on. And so, the things that we are able to get currently and work to continue to add to those libraries, we felt really important to perform.
That's wonderful. And thank you for bringing these to light to the community. I did not know about either one of these amazing women, so I'm excited, and I already started looking up more music by them and listening to it, and so thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump over to some questions for Kimberly. Hi, Kimberly. So you mentioned that painting with music is often a part of your process, and you also have a career in musical theater. So the question is this the first time you're painting to classical music? And is this the first visual art and music collaboration you've worked on?
Yes to both. Yeah, I like you said, I work because of my musical background and being a singer and all of that. Like, I listen to music quite a bit when I work, and that can greatly influence that. And I was gonna say, not taken aback, but just like really pleasantly surprised that Astoria Music Project reached out and asked me to collaborate on this, and right away it just felt like a really good fit.
Florence Price was very connected to church, and Adoration has a religious connotation. What meaning did you derive from the musical performance by Astoria Music Project? And did you know about the piece at all prior to hearing Amanda and David's rendition?
No, I didn't know anything about Florence Price prior to this. And so once I got that information, I was able to look her up and find out a bit more about her history. And I held back on listening to any of her other music until I wanted to hear this rendition of it before getting anything else in my head that would skew feelings and emotions and colors and all that sort of stuff, And then once I was able to hear it a few times, then I branched out and listened to a violin version of it, as well as other pieces of her, just to get a feel for who she was and what her music said to me, basically. And it felt more like I could see that hymnal aspect to it, but for me, it was more about a love and a yearning, and I get this visual, this 1940s musical in that golden era of a woman singing off into the sunset with these beautiful colors, and she's just got this, heart-wrenching love to whoever she's singing to, and that's a lot that went sweeping through my head when I was listening to this rendition of it.
And what made you choose a round panel?
I don't know. I think it was something I have thought about from time to time, and then something, just something about this project from the beginning just made me think this was it. This was the time. This was the time to go ahead and branch out from my regular, primarily square pieces, and
Right.
and it also felt like it added a bit to the lyricalness of the piece, to have that movement to go along with the sweeping aspect of the music.
So while you were painting, do you feel that the colors seem to relate to a particular sound from the recording? Or like, for example, did the pink maybe relate to a softer sound, or purple to a stronger sound?
I think it's more of the emotions that it gave to me, that that there was this yearning and embracing love and hope, and even a bit of whimsy in there. So I think that's where the gold came from, just to add that little extra bit of fun, I guess you can say. Because there is those moments, at least for me, when I listen to it, that it's not, because it can feel a little melancholy, and but not necessarily sad, at least for me. And like that heart-wrenching sad. So it kind of bounced around with those emotions, and I think that's where the colors pulled from for me on that. And I think it goes with the highs and lows of the piece.
Yeah, I think it's actually interesting, Kimberly. So this is our first time kind of like talking about the piece together. It's interesting that you mentioned a sunset, because when I saw it, that's the first thing I thought of, that it looked like a beautiful sunset. And then another thought I had when I was looking at the images was it because it's round, which one fits, like you said, the music and the lyrical aspect of the music, but it looks like it reminded me at some points of a planet. And it made me think of another piece called The Planets, and there's one movement about Venus, which is goddess of love, and I kept thinking of that image. So
love that.
Yeah, so I think it's like I got all of that from your art and the music without ever having spoken to you.
Excellent.
Yeah, actually, let's jump back to the musicians. So how was your impression of Kimberly's impression to your music?
Go ahead, Amanda.
No, I mean, I think I basically covered it. So
yeah, I think you did a great job. Again, it's just like so cool seeing something like visually that I've only heard before, and just seeing another artist's interpretation of what they're hearing done in a completely different medium.
Mm-hmm.
That was really exciting.
Yeah, I like that overall. I mean, that when I look at the whole canvas, I get like so many different things in one, and like that one spot that has the really bright red color as like like when you're saying like a sunset, yeah, and it can be sort of melancholy, right? It's like a beautiful moment in time, but it sort of foretells something else. So I totally get that. But yeah, that little spark of the really bright spot in this sea of all these really beautiful pastels and like the little gold on top. I mean, it's layered in a way that I think something that when you listen to is very just easily listenable, right? Very beautiful music, you know, the lyricism of it, just the line of the melody, but it's so can be so complex and broken down. And I think that mirrors sort of what you did with the paints. So it's great. I love it.
Thank you. And I think this goes back to one of the questions that I missed was I had never painted to classical music before. You know, my choice in music can change depending on my mood and such. And but for some reason I enjoy classical music. It's not something that I had actually painted to before, and that was just really lovely and different for me, you know, and it just pulled out, I think, a different side of my work.
Yeah, I watched the video and I felt very overwhelmed, really, looking at the colors and the music, listening to the music, and yeah, it was wonderful to watch. So,
Yeah.
Mafe, you explore the artificial mind, and I wanted to know if you could start by touching on the different moving parts of this particular sensitive machine.
Yes, sure. Well, I built a composition of 4 different machines. Each machine is vibrating in a different rate. So it's picking the sound vibration in different, you know, ranges. And it was really a very interesting process to do because it's the first time that I work based on sound. My machines are deaf and mute. There's no microphone there. So what you see, those explosions of colors that you see is literally what they are picking about the vibration of the music, which is actually very interesting because you can see if you watch the video closely, you can see how one machine is basically picturing the voice, more about the words, and then another one I related with the vibration in the internal instrument that the voice creates, but also you can see the whole composition, the piano, you know, the chords. So it was really interesting. I have been doing videos with my cell phone for basically 3 weeks, understanding how to calibrate the machines to make sense for the music. And I have been discovering a lot during the process, you know, and I think even in terms of music, we share terms like color, for example. And I think having that experience with singing specifically and the color of the voice, I was trying to create depth and like dramatic moments. But the good part and the very cool part of it is like I don't control it. I mean, I didn't know when at the very beginning I told you guys that this was going to be very experimental, and I don't control how the machines react. So for me, it was also a very beautiful surprise to see how they are visually singing and playing the song, the piece. You know, it's a really cool collaboration.
I just want to add that it's so amazing because like I was thinking the exact same thing watching the video, that like especially the bar that had the magenta and the green, like it's literally changing with my vibrato of my voice. Like, and I'm thinking like, oh I'm sure my voice teacher is gonna get a kick out of this because we can literally measure the speed of my vibrato. So I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
So the machine responds to sound, vibrations, movement, and also touch?
Yes, they naturally, because they are an electromagnetic artifact, if you touch them, they are even more sensitive, and they probably have different reactions if you touch it, if you touch them. But in this case, I didn't have that interaction. I just played the music as loud as I could, and they were sensing that. So that was actually a very interesting space to explore, because it's like how music touches. You know, that we use that term that, oh, that music touched me, and I felt it in my skin and made me feel X and Y. So for me, it was very, very beautiful, and brought me like a lot of different reflections about how we understand these universal languages, like our emotions, music, and also abstraction, because you know, color movement are abstract languages.
Right, right. So you've created these sculptures. So to what extent would you say the sensitive machine is an extension of you yourself, if at all?
Yeah, absolutely. They are. In the process of creating the machines and create the code and put them together, I'm always in a process of reflection and understanding about my own experiences, like how my body and experience the world, and also how I understand language, in this case specifically music, works. So I'm growing all the time, every time that I'm putting them together. But in the interaction also, I grow. You know, I create the artifact to explore my own sensitiveness, and how to feel more the other person. But in the process, I discovered that they also allowed others to feel themselves, and to feel others too more. So they are kind of an amplifiers. And also you are able to see something about the human condition that probably before we didn't have the possibility to see, you know? So, and I think I relate a lot that with what music means to me, because you know, you can listen to something that is in German or in another language, and classical music specifically has that quality that you can basically imagine, you know, a landscape or an entire scene happening. And it's something there's some magic there. And I feel that the machines in some way have that ability to create that aura for people to enter that realm. I don't know, probably it's a little bit
Right, it felt like that when you're watching the machine. Absolutely. It feels alive when you're watching it. It really does. And it's interesting how you touch on the different languages. I mean, knowing that your machines don't speak words or understand words, and can't hear words, do you feel that vibration is maybe a more universal and more important language?
Well, I don't know if it's more important. I think it's just different. For example, concreteness, like words. When you speak some words and express yourself in words, they're very concrete. They represent very specific ideas. You know, a table is a table. And you probably can elaborate a little bit about the type of table and that kind of things. But at the very end is a table. In this case, with abstraction, we are experiencing or exploring, you know, different aspects of what we can perceive. And I think it's that in that space where music and my work shares a common ground. It's like it's the space of interpretation, I believe, right? It's a very concrete thing because there is like a language for music. You are playing notes, but what that builds is open for everybody to interpret. Well, interpret. I'm sorry.
Right.
No, it's so true because, you know, with music, you know, like a pitch is just a frequency. And,
Mhm.
you know, if you have A440, that's the frequency of it. And yeah, everyone can sing it a little differently or play it a little differently. And absolutely the interpretation of it. I love that idea.
Yeah. And that works for visual art, of course, as well.
Mhm.
So there's a big connection there. Mafe, as an artist, I'm just curious about one last thing. Well, curious about many more, but for today, what originally sparked your interest in working with artificial intelligence?
Well, I'm very curious since I was little, so I'm very, very curious, and I love machines and computers and all that. But also, I think since the beginning, when I started to learn how to use computers when I was a kid, I wanted to go a little bit beyond of what the technology is as a tool, you know.
Mhm.
And because I'm an artist, you know, we tend to break the rules and explore a little bit beyond that what everybody is seeing. So um, I think I was trying to understand how computers work and what make them how they develop so fast and how they are getting into a more profound interaction with our lives and ourselves as human beings. So when I started to read about that, I found, very like in the 2000s, uh, um, how technology was based in language. And I made that connection. I was like, oh, so probably we can, start to explore how machines can be viewed from a different perspective and not just like a tool, for the humanity, but also as a material to express things. And well, one thing connect to another. It was in the 2000s was the very beginning of the development on artificial intelligence. So I jumped into that to see, well, how is this that machines can be now smart? And in that moment, I questioned myself because I read something about the ability of machines to feel emotions, and that was the trigger for me, because I was like, how come? I mean, how is it going to be possible that when a machine can feel? I don't even know what is love. It's like we have an entire, you know, I don't know, literary development and music and everything to try to express what is love. How a machine is gonna know that? So here I am trying to figure that out. I don't know if I'm gonna do it, but the journey is so interesting that
Yeah,
For sure.
incredible. So now I'm going to ask all of you, now that you've all worked together on this incredible project, do you think that you'll continue to experiment with these types of collaborations and in a digital or real world at this point? Is it something that you all see yourselves wanting to do more?
I am interested in seeing what our like original concept would have been like, right? Because it was really cool transforming the project into this digital space and seeing what it looks like here. I'm also curious what it would be like having an audience and like having the audience live and being surrounded by them and seeing their reaction to what they're hearing, what they're seeing, and just that would be fascinating. So I'd love to continue this.
Yeah, especially with the machine, like with how it would react in a real space,
Yeah.
And, I'm just thinking like to myself, oh, what if I like went and sang right at it, or what if I backed up, just even like the difference, play it along with the video of the recording and compare the two. I think because like each time you do it, it will be slightly different, and how many people are in the audience that would take, the vibration would be different. And so yeah, I mean, I think definitely this kind of thing is of interest to us, and for me, definitely, for sure. I think you know, the idea of creating sort of a totally new product from two different genres that are like, you know, they are going to be linked, you know, the arts are all linked, but you're right, Mafe. I think the visual art community is always light years ahead, especially of classical music, but of all, you know, the musical genres in general. And, you know, giving us a little bit of, I guess, impetus to sort of like try new stuff and get out of our boxes a little bit. I mean, that's sort of what
Right.
AMP is all about like getting outside of that like stodgy concert hall kind of vibe, but like this takes it to a whole different level. And I think that that's really exciting and frankly, like a lot more fun for us. So yeah, and it's nice. It's just nice to see what other artists, like how they process and how even though we've all been trained in very different ways,
Yeah.
what we end up perceiving from things tends to a lot of times follow the same sort of patterns, which I find really interesting. Because I would never say that I know anything about visual art, like on any real, you know, deep level, but
Yeah,
a lot of what you all are saying it just resonates with me.
yeah.
It resonates.
Actually, seeing the piece that Kimberly made, I was actually wondering about the colors and how was her process, you know, because it's like when I was sitting observing my machines, I was like, oh, so they are producing pinks, and you're completely right, as Stefanie. If you sing close to them or the amount of people in the room, that is going to change the behavior, definitely.
Yeah.
And you can move with your voice the machines, which is crazy. But I also, you know, having that experience, and when I connected with Kimberly work, I was like, I wonder how, I mean, what was her internal process, you know, to express these specific colors in these specific ways, you know? I was trying to see her like I see my machine, like how she did this, you know? So I think now I have like tons of things that I want to do with you guys. It's like we get together and experience and explore all these stuff is just, it's really amazing.
Yeah.
Project. I really love the collaboration.
Yeah, it's honestly like one of the coolest things when like at first I didn't even think this was like something that could be done, and then, you know, Norma actually was the one who gave us your contact information initially, and she had mentioned like, oh, like Mafe does this stuff with like digital light sculptures that react in real time, and I was like, wait, what? I need to know more. Like I have to know more about this because it's just the coolest freaking thing. I mean, I've never seen anything like it personally. I think it's so cool. So. And the other thing I was thinking too about doing, you know, like David said, doing something in person. I mean, so much, especially Kimberly, your piece. I want to see it up close. Like I want to see the texture in person and be able to see. You know, obviously, there's only so much we can do in the digital space.
Right.
You know, we really have lucked out, and we sort of, I think, hit a home run with the 4 artists that we have for this project. And what we've been able to come up with, but it doesn't really, it's not 100%, you know, going to take the place of being able to physically see with your own eyes, without the barrier of a screen, to see the actual texture and everything of your work.
Yeah, and to be up close with it and be able to explore it at your own pace along with the music, I think would be such a cool experience.
Yeah, I keep thinking that we've made our very own, you know, the Fantasia.
Yeah.
This is not Fantasia 2000, but Fantasia 2020.
So my last question is for all of you, and obviously everyone on this panel has been very creative during these times, but if you, we are in COVID times, so of course it's always interesting to know how did COVID affect your process and your work and your mental state?
For me, I didn't, I had a really challenging time in the beginning. I didn't, as an empath, like everything was just really overwhelming. And so yeah, it took me a while to get into the groove. And what was challenging for me is that I already had commissions lined up. And so that I got to the point where I couldn't put it off any longer. And I just had to like jump into my work, and it was kind of the, I guess, kick in the pants that I needed. And I've been very fortunate to have several commission projects this year, which on the one hand felt really crazy, and I'm so incredibly grateful for. But that really helped me to not just sit and be in my head, you know. It helps me to, because painting's like very meditative, you know. That's why I listen to music. It's an extension of that for me, where I can slip into the music, which allows me to get out of my head and let things flow into whatever I'm creating. And so that's where it had started, and it's much easier now, but still has its challenges, you know, where you're not able to travel for inspiration or go to museums or galleries and art exhibitions and all that sort of stuff that spark all these different things for you. You know, I'm in my New York apartment and sharing a space and all those things too. But, you know, you work with that and you try to take what you can from that to continue pushing the work forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that was me.
I find that like doing things for at least for music with COVID, because of the latency with things like Zoom and like Google Classroom or whatever you might be using, there's not really a way to make music together. And so, you know, having to deal with recording individual tracks, and you know, the three of us did a collaboration over the summer of one of the Schubert pieces that we had done before. And you know, you think of it on a basic level, you're like, oh, it's recording, like if I mess it up I just do another take. But it's so much more exhausting to do that than it is to just get up in front of an audience. And there's something so much more draining about it, which seems like it would be the opposite. But I think, right, you know, we're so used to having that energy and, you know, the feedback from the audience and you know, the adrenaline of being in a live performance. And you just don't get that when you're like, I'm in this middle room in my apartment singing to the iPad, and my cat's like trying to get in her litter box while I'm doing this take. You know, it's very like, yeah. It's just very draining is the thing. I think the word that I would use, and draining and difficult in a way that is I think we weren't anticipating as much how much that would affect us. And so I was really glad that we were able to do the recordings for this project in person. The four of us, the three of us and Blanca, were able to actually record a studio and as safely as possible to record the four pieces, so that we were able to like make music together. It was really, really wonderful that one day.
That was amazing. Yeah, just being around people, being around other artists who are making something happen. And like, you know, staying as safe as possible, but still just physically being in the same space as someone else creating art was very powerful.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but that was the last time that I played with other people since our recording. So yeah, looking forward to the next time.
Yeah. Once it gets nice out again, we'll go in the backyard and do a concert.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me was the same. In my case, my work needs interaction, like people interaction. I can do peripheral things via Zoom, you know, like talks and show my process and my creative process and background and all that. But it's really difficult to have a big interaction that way because I'm the only person in the apartment interacting with that. This project was very interesting for me because I had to install in my house and had more than one machine. I usually have just one prototype. That is the one that I use to test the new codes and things like that. But now I have an installation and it's kind of fun because I can now play with more things and recording the video. You know, it was really exciting and also helped me to come back to that part of the creative process that is putting together an installation and exploring things and, you know, Also during the first period with the lockdown, all the providers closed, so I didn't have anywhere to buy electronics, so I was kind of depressed about it.
Yeah.
And I turned it to, well, I'm gonna use this time to read and learn things that I need to learn, or test different components that I want to add. But it was kind of tough, definitely.
Mhm.
I had an exhibition in October that didn't happen. So, but I feel, right now I feel like, well, things happen for a reason. And now having this experience actually is making me think about different ways to upload that exhibition. So,
Well, it was really wonderful talking with all of you, and you did an amazing job bringing this very wonderful energy across, even if it's through the screen. I felt a lot with everything that I was able to look at and listen to. So thank you so much. And I think we can all read more about the composers and the artists and musicians on both the Astoria Music Project website and the LIC website. And after everything is finished recording, we will also be posting those for archives as well.
Yep.
So,
Wonderful.
yeah. So thank you, everyone.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Kimberly and Mafe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
everybody.